As he approached, Eliza could make out his features, strong jaw, penetrating gray eyes, and an expression that suggested he wasn't accustomed to unexpected visitors. "I'm Gabriel Westbrook," he said, his voice matching the one from the intercom. "Where's your car?" Eliza pointed to her old Honda, still steaming despite the rain. "I'm Eliza Morgan. My daughter Lily is asleep in the back. I'm so sorry to disturb you, but—" "Pop the hood," Gabriel interrupted, already walking toward her car. Eliza hurried after him, catching the way his expensive shoes sank into the mud without him seeming to notice or care. She reached through the driver's window and pulled the hood release. Gabriel examined the engine with practiced ease, his face illuminated by a small flashlight he pulled from his pocket. "Blown head gasket," he said after a moment. "You're not driving this anywhere tonight." Eliza's heart sank. "Is there a hotel nearby? Or maybe a garage I could call?" "Nothing within walking distance, especially not in this weather." Gabriel glanced at the sleeping child in the back seat, his expression softening slightly. "You'd better come up to the house. I'll have my mechanic look at it in the morning." "I couldn't possibly." "It's not a request, Ms. Morgan. There's a storm warning in effect, and I'm not leaving a woman and child stranded on my property." His tone left no room for argument. 20 minutes later, Eliza found herself carrying a still sleeping Lily through the grand entrance of what turned out to be not just a mansion, but practically a castle. The foyer alone was bigger than their entire apartment in Philadelphia. "Mrs. Winters," Gabriel called, and an older woman with silver hair appeared almost instantly. "Please prepare the blue guest suite. Our guests will be staying the night." "Right away, Mr. Westbrook," the woman replied, giving Eliza a curious but not unkind glance before disappearing down one of the many hallways. "You can put your daughter down in the sitting room while we wait," Gabriel said, gesturing to a space off the main hallway. Eliza carefully laid Lily on a plush sofa that probably cost more than her car, then turned to face her reluctant host. In the bright light of the house, she could see him clearly for the first time. Gabriel Westbrook was undeniably handsome, probably in his late 30s, with dark hair graying slightly at the temples. His clothes were casual, but obviously expensive, and there was an intensity to his gaze that made her both uncomfortable and intrigued. "Thank you for your help, Mr. Westbrook," she said, trying to maintain her composure despite her rain-soaked appearance. "We'll be out of your hair first thing in the morning." Gabriel was studying her with an unreadable expression. "What brings you to Westbrook, Ms. Morgan?" "We don't get many visitors, especially not at this hour." "I'm moving here, actually. I'm starting a job at Westbrook Elementary on Monday." She tucked a strand of wet hair behind her ear. "We were supposed to check into our rental today, but the agent called to say there was water damage from a burst pipe. The place won't be ready for at least a week. And you have nowhere else to go," Gabriel concluded. "We would have found a hotel, but it's late, and with the storm." Eliza trailed off, suddenly aware of how vulnerable her situation was, alone with her daughter in a stranger's house, no matter how wealthy or seemingly decent he appeared to be. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel. It means a lot to us. Now back to the story. "I own several properties in town," Gabriel said after a moment. "I can have one prepared for you tomorrow." Eliza stiffened. "That's very generous, but we'll be fine at a hotel. I don't need charity, Mr. Westbrook." Something like amusement flickered in his eyes. "It's not charity. It's a solution to a problem. I dislike problems, Ms. Morgan." Before she could respond, Mrs. Winters returned. "The blue suite is ready, sir. I've turned down the beds and laid out some of Miss Abigail's things that might fit the young lady." She nodded toward Lily. "Thank you, Mrs. Winters. Please show Ms. Morgan and her daughter to their rooms." Gabriel turned back to Eliza. "We'll discuss your car in the morning. Good night." With that, he walked away, leaving Eliza standing in his enormous foyer, wondering what kind of man lived alone in a house this size and why he seemed so determined to help strangers who had interrupted his evening. The blue suite turned out to be a 2-bedroom apartment within the mansion, complete with its own sitting area and bathroom that featured a tub Eliza could practically swim in. After tucking Lily into a bed that swallowed her small form, Eliza finally allowed herself to breathe. What was she doing here? Her plan had been so careful. Save enough money to leave Philadelphia and the memories of her failed marriage, find a teaching position in a quiet town where no one knew them, give Lily the stable childhood she deserved. Now they were spending their first night in Westbrook in the home of a man who screamed complicated from every perfectly tailored inch of him. Eliza took a hot shower, washing away the stress of the day. When she emerged, she found a silk nightgown and robe laid out on the bed. They were obviously expensive, with tags still attached. She hesitated before putting them on, but her own clothes were soaked from the rain. Sleep eluded her as she lay in the most comfortable bed she'd ever experienced. Through the window, she could see the storm still raging, lightning occasionally illuminating the vast grounds of the estate. On one such flash, she spotted a figure standing on a balcony of the main house. Gabriel Westbrook, seemingly oblivious to the rain, staring out into the darkness. Eliza wondered what kind of demons kept a billionaire awake during a storm, watching the rain as if it held answers to questions she couldn't begin to imagine. Morning brought sunshine streaming through windows that Mrs. Winters must have quietly unshuttered. Eliza found Lily already awake, exploring their luxurious temporary home. "Mommy, this place is like a princess castle," Lily exclaimed, her brown eyes wide with excitement. "Do you think they have pancakes?" "I'm sure we can find something for breakfast." Eliza smiled, trying to hide her anxiety about facing their enigmatic host in the daylight. After dressing in her now dry clothes from yesterday, Eliza helped Lily into an outfit that had been left for her, a child's sundress that looked barely worn but was clearly of the highest quality. "Who's Abigail?" Lily asked as Eliza brushed her hair. "Mrs. Winters said these were her clothes." "I don't know, sweetie. Maybe Mr. Westbrook has a daughter." Though the house had shown no signs of children, no toys, no childproofing, nothing to suggest a family lived there, they followed the smell of coffee and found themselves in a sun-filled kitchen where Mrs. Winters was preparing what looked like enough food for a small army. "Good morning," the housekeeper greeted them warmly. "Mr. Westbrook asked me to make sure you had a proper breakfast. He's in his study, but said to tell you your car has been towed to our garage. Thomas is looking at it now." "That's very kind, but we really need to get going." "I need to find a place for us to stay," Eliza said, even as Lily climbed onto a stool at the island counter and eyed the pancakes hungrily. "Mr. Westbrook has already taken care of that," Mrs. Winters said, placing a stack of pancakes in front of Lily. "The lake house has been prepared for you. It's one of the properties on the estate, just down the hill. Quite private, but close enough if you need anything." Eliza frowned. "I can't accept that. We'll find a hotel." "You won't find one," came Gabriel's voice from the doorway. He looked as immaculate as she'd imagined he would. Perfectly pressed slacks, a light blue button-down with the sleeves rolled up, revealing strong forearms. "Not one that's available. There's a fishing tournament in town this weekend. Everything's booked solid." "Good morning, Mr. Westbrook," Lily said cheerfully, maple syrup already smeared around her mouth. "Your house is amazing. Do you have any kids?" A shadow passed over Gabriel's face. "No," he said simply, then turned his attention back to Eliza. "Your car needs parts that will take a few days to arrive. The lake house is sitting empty. It makes sense for you to use it." "I can't pay what a place like that would normally rent for," Eliza said, hating the way her financial situation was so obviously at odds with his world. "I'm not asking for payment." Gabriel poured himself a cup of coffee. "Consider it a welcome to Westbrook. The town is technically named after my family. The least I can do is make sure its newest teacher has a decent place to stay." Before Eliza could argue further, a man in coveralls appeared at the kitchen entrance. "Mr. Westbrook?" "About the lady's car." Gabriel excused himself and stepped into the hallway with the man, who Eliza assumed was Thomas the mechanic. Their voices were low, but she caught phrases like, "complete rebuild and not worth the cost." Her heart sank. That car had been her lifeline, bought with carefully saved tips from her waitressing job while she finished her teaching degree. Without it, getting to work, taking Lily to school, everything would be more complicated. Gabriel returned, his expression carefully neutral. "I'm afraid the news isn't good. The engine needs to be completely rebuilt. Given the age and condition of the vehicle, Thomas doesn't recommend investing in the repairs." Eliza felt the room spin slightly. "I understand. Is there a used car lot in town? I have some savings." "Not enough for even a decent used car, I'd wager," Gabriel said, his bluntness making her flinch. "I have a proposition. My sister left her car here when she moved to Europe last year. It's just sitting in the garage. You can use it until you get yourself sorted." "Your sister wouldn't mind a stranger driving her car?" Something like pain flickered across Gabriel's face. "Abigail won't be needing it anymore." The way he said it closed the door on further questions about his sister. Eliza wanted to refuse. This was too much from a man she'd just met. But practicality won out. Without a car, she couldn't start her job. Without her job, she and Lily had no future in Westbrook. "That's very generous," she said finally. "But I insist on paying you once I get my first paycheck for both the car and the lake house." Gabriel studied her for a moment, then nodded. "If it makes you feel better. Now, if you're finished with breakfast, I'll have Mrs. Winters drive you to the lake house so you can get settled." 2 hours later, Eliza stood on the porch of the lake house, which turned out to be a gorgeous 3-bedroom cottage overlooking a small private lake. It was beautifully furnished, obviously professionally decorated, but with a warmth that the main house had lacked. In the driveway sat a relatively modest SUV, still luxury brand but not flashy, that Gabriel had insisted was perfect for a teacher and her daughter. Mrs. Winters had helped them settle in, stocking the refrigerator and showing them how everything worked before heading back to the main house. "This is the best house ever," Lily declared, having already claimed the bedroom with butterfly wallpaper as her own. "Can we stay here forever?" "Just until our rental is fixed, sweetie," Eliza said, though she had to admit the lake house made their intended rental look shabby in comparison. As Lily explored the backyard, which featured a small playground set that looked barely used, Eliza's phone rang. It was the rental agent. "Miss Morgan, I'm afraid I have bad news," the woman said. "The damage to the house is worse than we thought. The owner has decided to sell rather than repair it." "I'm so sorry, but your lease agreement is void." Eliza sat down hard on a porch chair. "But school starts Monday. We need somewhere to live." "I understand. I've already started looking for alternatives, but honestly, the market in Westbrook is tight. It might take some time to find something suitable in your price range." After hanging up, Eliza put her head in her hands. Just when she thought they were getting a fresh start, everything was falling apart. She didn't want to be indebted to Gabriel Westbrook any longer than necessary. Something about the intensity with which he looked at her made her nervous, though not entirely in an unpleasant way. That evening, after getting Lily settled in her new butterfly bedroom, Eliza was surprised by a knock at the door. Gabriel stood on the porch, holding a bottle of wine. "I thought you might need this after the day you've had," he said, stepping inside when she gestured for him to enter. "Mrs. Winters mentioned you like to read." He nodded toward the book on the coffee table, a dog-eared copy of Jane Eyre. "The study has built-in bookshelves. Help yourself to anything there." "Thank you." Eliza accepted the wine, noticing how different he seemed here. Less imposing, almost approachable. "The lake house is beautiful. Lily's already in love with it." Gabriel glanced around, a strange expression on his face. It was designed for a family. It's good to hear a child's voice here again. "Was this your sister's house?" Eliza asked carefully, remembering his reaction to Lily's question about Abigail. Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "It was supposed to be. She never got the chance to live in it." Eliza sensed the pain behind his words. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to pry." "It's fine." He moved toward the large picture window overlooking the lake, now silvery in the moonlight. "Your rental agent called me this afternoon." Eliza stiffened. "She called you? Why?" "I own most of the rental properties in town," Gabriel said matter-of-factly. "She wanted to know if I had anything available that might suit your needs." "And do you?" Gabriel turned to face her. "You could stay here. The lake house has been empty for 2 years. It needs a family." "I can't afford what a place like this would normally rent for," Eliza repeated her earlier concern. "I'm not interested in making money from this property." Gabriel's voice was quiet. "I built it for my sister and her family before." He trailed off. "Let's just say I'd rather see it used than sitting empty, collecting dust and memories." "I don't understand why you're doing all this for strangers," Eliza said, confusion and gratitude warring within her. Gabriel was silent for a long moment. "When I saw you standing in the rain last night, something told me to help. I don't usually listen to those instincts, but I'm glad I did." He moved toward the door. "Think about the lake house. The offer stands reasonable rent, flexible terms, no pressure." After he left, Eliza poured herself a glass of the wine he'd brought, an expensive vintage, she was sure, though she knew little about such things. She curled up on the window seat, looking out at the moonlit lake, and wondered about the man up the hill in his mansion. What had happened to his sister? Why did Gabriel Westbrook, who clearly had everything money could buy, seem so alone? And why did she, who had sworn off complicated men after her disaster of a marriage, find herself so intrigued by him? The weekend passed in a blur of unpacking what little they'd brought and exploring their temporary home. On Sunday afternoon, Eliza decided to drive into town to get familiar with the route to school and pick up some groceries. Westbrook was exactly the kind of charming New England town she'd hoped for when she applied for the teaching position. A picturesque main street lined with indie bookstores and cafes, a town square with a gazebo, and friendly faces that smiled and nodded as she and Lily walked by. At the local grocery store, she was filling her cart with essentials when she overheard two women talking in the next aisle. "That's her, the new teacher staying at Westbrook's lake house," one whispered, not quite quietly enough. "Already? He hasn't let anyone near that place since Abigail died. Wonder what makes her so special." Eliza froze, her hand halfway to a box of cereal. Abigail had died? Gabriel had mentioned she wouldn't need her car anymore, but Eliza had assumed she was living permanently in Europe. "You know how private he is about everything since the accident," the first woman continued. "Poor man. Lost his sister and his reputation in one night." "Well, he's still the richest man in town, even if Hartford society has all but excommunicated him," the second woman replied. "I just hope this new teacher knows what she's getting into. Those Westbrook men have always had a darkness in them." Eliza abandoned her shopping, suddenly desperate to get back to the lake house and research exactly who Gabriel Westbrook was and what had happened to his sister. But at the checkout line, she found herself face to face with a striking woman in her 50s, elegantly dressed, and studying Eliza with open curiosity. "You must be Eliza Morgan," the woman said, extending her hand. "I'm Victoria Caldwell, principal at Westbrook Elementary. I recognize you from your interview video." "It's lovely to meet you in person," Eliza said, shaking her hand. "I'm excited to start tomorrow." "We're thrilled to have you join us," Victoria smiled, though her eyes remained assessing. "I understand you're staying at the Westbrook Lake House." News traveled fast in small towns, Eliza reflected. "Just temporarily, while I look for a permanent place." Victoria nodded, a strange expression crossing her face. "Gabriel Westbrook is one of our school's biggest benefactors. The library wing is named after his late sister." She paused. "I hope you'll be comfortable there. The lake house has quite a history in this town." Back at the cottage, after getting Lily settled with a movie, Eliza sat down with her laptop and searched for information about Gabriel Westbrook and his sister. The results painted a picture she hadn't expected. Gabriel was the last of the Westbrooks, an old money family that had founded the town generations ago. His parents had died when he was in college, leaving him and his younger sister Abigail the family fortune and business interests. While Gabriel had expanded the family's investment portfolio and technology holdings, becoming one of the youngest billionaires in America, Abigail had been the family's public face. Charismatic, charitable, beloved by all. Until 2 years ago, when she died in a car accident on the winding road leading to the Westbrook estate. The accident had also claimed the life of Gabriel's business partner, David Chen. They had been returning from a charity gala in Hartford when their car went off the road during a storm similar to the one that had stranded Eliza. What caught Eliza's attention, however, was the speculation that followed. Gossip columns hinted at a possible affair between Abigail and David, who had been married at the time. Some articles suggested Gabriel had known and confronted them that night. Others implied he'd been driving, despite official reports stating Abigail was behind the wheel. The scandal had rocked Hartford society, and Gabriel had retreated from public life almost entirely afterward, becoming the recluse that Eliza had encountered. She closed her laptop, troubled by what she'd learned. The lake house had been built for Abigail, a sister Gabriel had clearly adored and lost in tragic circumstances. No wonder he seemed haunted. As Eliza prepared for her first day of teaching, she couldn't help but feel she'd stumbled into something much more complicated than a simple car breakdown. Gabriel Westbrook carried deep wounds, and for some reason he'd chosen to help her and Lily. The question was why, and whether getting entangled with him would lead to healing or more heartbreak for all of them. Monday morning dawned bright and clear. Eliza dressed carefully for her first day. A modest blue dress that brought out her eyes, her curly brown hair tamed into a professional updo. Lily was equally excited about starting first grade at her new school. "Do you think I'll make friends today?" Lily asked as Eliza drove them to town in Abigail's SUV. "I'm sure you will, sweetie. Just be yourself, your wonderful, kind self." Westbrook Elementary was a beautiful old brick building with modern additions, including the Abigail Westbrook Memorial Library that Principal Caldwell had mentioned. As they walked toward the entrance, Eliza noticed several parents glancing their way, whispering behind their hands. Victoria Caldwell met them at the door, warmly welcoming Lily and showing her to her classroom before leading Eliza to hers. "Your third graders are excited to meet you," Victoria said. "We've told them all about how you're coming all the way from Philadelphia to teach them." "Thank you for this opportunity," Eliza said sincerely. "This school, this town, it's exactly what Lily and I were hoping for." Victoria hesitated at the classroom door. "Eliza, may I speak frankly?" When Eliza nodded, she continued. "Small towns have long memories and active imaginations. Your connection to Gabriel Westbrook has already been noticed. If you're planning to stay in Westbrook long-term, you should know that his name carries complications." "We're hardly connected," Eliza protested. "He's just helping us temporarily." "Gabriel doesn't just help anyone," Victoria said quietly. "Not since Abigail died. Whatever your arrangement with him, be careful. Not for your professional standing. Your job is secure, but for your heart. Gabriel Westbrook is not the man he once was." With that cryptic warning, Victoria left Eliza to prepare for her students. The day passed in a blur of new faces, names to learn, and curriculum to begin. By the time she picked up Lily from the after-school program, Eliza was exhausted but exhilarated. This was why she'd become a teacher, to connect with young minds, to make a difference. Lily chattered happily about her new friends and teacher as they drove back to the lake house. When they rounded the bend in the driveway, Eliza was surprised to see Gabriel's car parked outside. He was sitting on the porch steps, looking more casual than she'd seen him before in jeans and a simple gray t-shirt that highlighted his athletic build. "Mr. Westbrook," Lily called out, jumping from the car as soon as Eliza parked. "Guess what? I made 3 friends today, and my teacher has a pet hamster named Oreo." Gabriel's serious face softened as Lily approached. "That sounds like an excellent first day, Miss Lily. And please, call me Gabriel." "What brings you by?" Eliza asked, trying to ignore how domestic this scene felt. Coming home to find him waiting for them. "I wanted to see how your first day went," he said, rising to his feet. "And to bring you these." He handed her an envelope. Inside were keys and a rental agreement for the lake house, with a monthly rent that was shockingly reasonable for such a property. "This is well below market value," Eliza said, frowning. "Consider it the local discount," Gabriel replied. "As I said, I'd rather see the house lived in." While Lily ran inside to change out of her school clothes, Eliza studied the man before her. In the afternoon sunlight, she could see the fine lines around his eyes, the tension he seemed to carry in his shoulders. "I looked you up," she admitted. "I know about Abigail. I'm so sorry for your loss." Gabriel's expression shuddered. "Don't believe everything you read online." "I don't," Eliza said softly. "But I understand now why this place means so much to you. Why you might be reluctant to rent it to strangers." Gabriel was quiet for a long moment, his gaze fixed on the lake. "After Abigail died, I couldn't bear to sell this place, but I couldn't stand to see it empty either. It was meant for happiness, for family." He turned to look at Eliza. "When I saw you and Lily that night in the rain, something just clicked. Like, maybe the house was waiting for you." The intensity in his eyes made Eliza's heart beat faster. This man was dangerous. Not in the physical sense, but in the way he made her feel things she'd promised herself she wouldn't feel again after her ex-husband's betrayal. "We'll take good care of it," she promised, avoiding his gaze by looking down at the rental agreement. "And I'll sign these tonight." Gabriel nodded. seeming to understand her need for distance. "There's no rush. Take your time to read everything through." He started toward his car, then stopped. "There's a standing invitation for dinner at the main house on Fridays. Mrs. Winters insists. No pressure, of course." As he drove away, Eliza couldn't help but feel that despite her best intentions, she and Lily were already becoming entangled in Gabriel Westbrook's complicated life. The question was whether that was a blessing or a curse. That night, after Lily was asleep, Eliza sat on the porch swing, looking up at the distant lights of the main house. Gabriel was up there, alone in his fortress of wealth and painful memories. Despite every instinct telling her to keep her distance, she couldn't help but wonder if perhaps their broken pieces might somehow fit together. The first weeks at the lake house settled into a rhythm Eliza hadn't anticipated. Each morning, she and Lily would have breakfast on the porch overlooking the misty lake before driving to school. Afternoons were filled with lesson planning and helping Lily with homework. Gabriel remained a distant figure, occasionally visible on the grounds of the main house, but rarely approaching them directly. But small-town curiosity wasn't so easily avoided. At school, Eliza noticed how conversations would pause when she entered the teacher's lounge, only to resume in hushed tones after she left. Parents at drop-off gave her speculative glances. Even her students had questions. "Ms. Morgan, is it true you live in Mr. Westbrook's special house?" One of her third graders asked during sharing time one Friday. "I rent a cottage on Mr. Westbrook's property," Eliza corrected gently. "Now, who wants to share their weekend plans?" Later that day, she was organizing her classroom after the students had left when Victoria Caldwell appeared in her doorway. "You're doing wonderfully with the children," the principal said, leaning against the doorframe. "They adore you already." "Thank you. I'm really enjoying it here." Victoria seemed to hesitate before continuing. "I noticed you haven't accepted any of the staff happy hour invitations." Eliza looked up from the papers she was sorting. "I have Lily to consider. It's not easy finding babysitters in a new town." "Of course, but integration into the community is important for new teachers." Victoria paused. "Some of the parents have been asking questions about your living situation." "My living situation is perfectly appropriate," Eliza said, trying to keep the defensiveness from her voice. "I rent the lake house. Mr. Westbrook lives in the main house. We rarely interact." "I'm not questioning your professionalism," Victoria assured her. "But you should know that where Gabriel Westbrook is concerned, this town has opinions. Before Abigail's accident, the Westbrooks were royalty here. Afterward." She sighed. "Let's just say there are factions, those who believe the official story and those who don't. What does this have to do with me?" "Nothing directly, but aligning yourself with Gabriel, even just as his tenant, means picking a side in a divide you might not fully understand yet." Eliza thought about the dinner invitation for that evening, which she had yet to accept or decline. "I appreciate your concern, Victoria, but I make my own judgments about people." The principal nodded. "Fair enough. Just remember, we're a small pond here, and Gabriel Westbrook is our biggest fish, with perhaps the sharpest teeth." That evening, as Eliza helped Lily choose an outfit for dinner at the big house, as her daughter had taken to calling it, she couldn't stop thinking about Victoria's warning. What exactly had happened the night Abigail died, and why did the town seem so divided about it? "Do you think Mr. Gabriel has ice cream?" Lily asked, pulling Eliza from her thoughts. "Rich people always have the best ice cream." Eliza laughed. "I don't know, sweetheart, but let's not ask for ice cream right away, okay? That wouldn't be polite." The walk up to the main house took them along a winding path, through carefully tended gardens. September was giving way to October, and the evening air had a crisp edge to it that hinted at the coming fall. Lily skipped ahead, stopping to examine interesting rocks and leaves along the way. Mrs. Winters greeted them at the door, her usually stern face softening at the sight of Lily's enthusiasm. "Mr. Westbrook is in the library," she informed them, taking their light jackets. "Dinner will be served in 30 minutes. The library turned out to be a 2-story room with floor-to-ceiling bookshelves and a massive stone fireplace where a fire was already crackling. Gabriel stood by one of the tall windows, a glass of amber liquid in his hand. He turned when they entered, and Eliza was struck again by how his presence seemed to fill any space he occupied. "You came," he said. And though his expression remained neutral, Eliza detected a note of genuine pleasure in his voice. "Lily has been looking forward to it all week," she replied, which was true, though not the complete truth. She'd been thinking about this evening too, more than she cared to admit. "Have you really?" Gabriel asked, directing his attention to Lily. "And what part were you most looking forward to?" "Seeing if rich people have better ice cream than regular people," Lily answered honestly, making Gabriel let out a surprised laugh. A warm, genuine sound that transformed his face. "Well, we can't have you leaving disappointed," he said. "Mrs. Winters made chocolate and vanilla bean, but I also had her pick up Rocky Road, just in case." "That's my favorite." Lily's eyes widened in delight. "Mine too," Gabriel confided, as if sharing a great secret. "But we should probably have dinner first, don't you think?" Dinner was served in a less formal dining room than Eliza had expected. A warm space with windows overlooking the gardens. The conversation flowed surprisingly easily, with Lily chattering about school and her new friends, and Gabriel listening with what appeared to be genuine interest. "And Ms. Pierce says I'm the best reader in class," Lily announced proudly as they finished their main course. "That doesn't surprise me," Gabriel said. "Smart clearly runs in the family." "My daddy wasn't smart," Lily said matter-of-factly. "That's why he left us. Mommy says only a dumb person would leave their family." Eliza nearly choked on her water. "Lily, that's not exactly what I said." Gabriel's gaze moved between them, curious but not pushing. "Sometimes people make choices they later regret," he said carefully. "It doesn't necessarily make them smart or dumb, just human." "Do you have regrets, Mr. Gabriel?" Lily asked with the direct innocence only a child could manage. The question hung in the air. For a moment, Eliza thought he wouldn't answer. "Every day," he finally said, his voice quiet. "But we can't change the past. We can only try to make better choices going forward." The simple honesty of his response touched something in Eliza. This wasn't the calculated charm of a wealthy playboy or the cold detachment of a reclusive billionaire. This was a man carrying wounds he didn't try to hide, at least not completely. After dinner and the much-anticipated ice cream, which Lily declared was, quote, "definitely better than regular people ice cream," Gabriel offered to show them something special. He led them through the house to a room Eliza hadn't seen during her brief stay. A small observatory with a retractable roof and a powerful telescope. "Abigail loved the stars," Gabriel explained as he adjusted the telescope. "She used to say they reminded her how small our problems really are in the grand scheme of things." "My teacher said we're all made of stardust," Lily said, standing on tiptoes to peer through the eyepiece Gabriel had set up for her. "Your teacher is right," Gabriel confirmed. "The elements in our bodies were forged in stars billions of years ago. So we're all connected," Lily concluded. "Like a big family." Gabriel's eyes met Eliza's over Lily's head. "I suppose we are." Later, as they walked back to the lake house under a sky full of the stars they'd just been examining, Lily's hand in hers, Eliza found herself conflicted. Gabriel Westbrook was not at all what the town gossip had led her to expect. There was a gentleness beneath his reserved exterior, especially where Lily was concerned. "I like Mr. Gabriel," Lily declared as Eliza tucked her into bed. "He's sad, but he's nice." "Yes, he is," Eliza agreed, smoothing her daughter's hair. "He's been through some difficult things, like us," Lily said sleepily. "Daddy hurt us, and something hurt Mr. Gabriel too." Out of the mouths of babes, Eliza thought, as she kissed her daughter goodnight. Perhaps that was why she felt this unexpected connection to Gabriel. They both knew what it was to be broken by people they'd trusted. The next morning, Eliza was surprised to find Gabriel at her door, dressed casually in jeans and a sweater, holding a wicker basket. "I thought you and Lily might like to see more of the property," he said, looking almost uncertain. "It's a perfect day for a picnic by the upper lake." Lily, still in her pajamas, bounced with excitement at the idea. "Can we, Mom? Please." Eliza hesitated only briefly before nodding. "Give us 15 minutes to get ready." The upper lake turned out to be a smaller, more secluded body of water nestled in the hills above the main estate. A wooden dock extended into the crystal-clear water, and a small boathouse stood nearby. "This is beautiful," Eliza said, as Gabriel spread a blanket on a grassy area near the shore. I had no idea this was even here." "Not many people do," Gabriel replied. "It's not visible from the road or the main house. Abigail and I used to come here as kids when we wanted to escape our parents' society functions." As he unpacked the picnic, an impressive spread of sandwiches, fruits, and pastries clearly prepared by Mrs. Winters, Lily ran to explore the shoreline, staying within sight but giving the adults a moment of privacy. "Thank you for dinner last night," Eliza said. Lily hasn't stopped talking about the observatory. Gabriel's smile was small but genuine. It was nice to have company. The house gets quiet. "I've been meaning to ask." Eliza hesitated, unsure if she was overstepping. "Who is Mrs. Winters to you?" "She seems more than just a housekeeper." "She was our nanny when we were children," Gabriel explained. "After our parents died, she stayed on. She's the closest thing to family I have left." "And she lives in the main house with you?" Gabriel nodded. "She has her own suite of rooms. I've tried to get her to retire, but she refuses. Says she'd die of boredom." Eliza smiled at that. "She clearly cares about you a great deal. The feeling is mutual." Gabriel's gaze drifted to where Lily was carefully examining rocks along the water's edge. "You're doing an impressive job with her. Single parenting can't be easy." "It's not," Eliza admitted. "But Lily makes it worth every struggle. Her father—" Gabriel began, then stopped himself. "I'm sorry." "That's none of my business." "It's okay," Eliza said, surprising herself with her willingness to share. "Mark and I met in college. He was charming, ambitious. Or so I thought. We got married right after graduation. I started teaching, and he went to law school." She paused, the familiar pain of betrayal more distant now than it once had been. "By the time Lily was 3, I discovered he'd been having affairs for most of our marriage. When I confronted him, he didn't even try to deny it. Said he, quote, wasn't cut out for family life and walked away. The divorce was finalized last year." Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "He's a fool," he said finally, with such conviction that Eliza felt warmth spread through her chest. "What about you?" she asked. "The articles I read mentioned you were never married?" "No," Gabriel confirmed. "My work always came first, then after Abigail." He trailed off, his expression darkening. "Let's just say I haven't been in a place to offer anyone much of anything." "Mom! Mr. Gabriel!" Lily called from the dock. "Can we go in the boat?" The moment broken, Gabriel stood and called back. "It's a bit chilly for boating today, but how about we walk around to the waterfall instead?" The rest of the day passed in a surprising haze of enjoyment. Gabriel proved to be knowledgeable about the local wildlife and plant life, answering Lily's endless questions with patience. By the time they returned to the lake house in the late afternoon, Eliza felt more relaxed than she had in months. "This was really nice," she said as they reached her porch. "Thank you." Gabriel steadied her face for a moment. "Would it be too forward to ask you to have dinner with me next Friday? Just the two of us?" Mrs. Winters would be happy to watch Lily. The invitation hung between them, weighted with possibilities and complications. Eliza knew the sensible answer was no. Getting involved with Gabriel Westbrook, her landlord, a man with a complicated past and the subject of town gossip, was exactly the kind of messiness she'd promised herself to avoid after Mark. But looking at him now, his guard down, something vulnerable in his eyes, she found herself nodding. "I'd like that." The smile that transformed his face made her heart skip. "I'll pick you up at 7. As October progressed, Eliza found herself settling more deeply into life in Westbrook. Her students were responding well to her teaching methods. Lily was thriving in her new school, and their Friday dinners with Gabriel had become a highlight of their week. Sometimes they ate at the main house, other times Gabriel would join them at the lake house, bringing ingredients to cook together. Eliza discovered he was surprisingly skilled in the kitchen. Another talent learned from Mrs. Winters, he explained. After Lily would go to bed, they would talk for hours about books, music, their childhoods. Gabriel spoke of growing up with the weight of the Westbrook legacy on his shoulders, of his father's stern expectations and his mother's emotional distance. Eliza shared stories of her own upbringing, more modest but warm, with parents who had supported her dreams even when they couldn't always understand them. The one subject they both carefully avoided was Abigail and the accident. Eliza sensed that wound was still too raw to probe, and she respected his silence on the matter. But the town had not forgotten. Whispers followed Eliza at school, at the grocery store, even at the local coffee shop where she sometimes graded papers. Gabriel Westbrook's new friend was a subject of intense speculation. "Don't let it bother you," her fellow third-grade teacher, Rachel, advised one afternoon as they prepared their classrooms for the upcoming parent-teacher conferences. "This town thrives on gossip, especially where the Westbrooks are concerned." "It's ridiculous," Eliza said, pinning up student artwork with more force than necessary. "We're friends, that's all." Rachel gave her a knowing look. "If you say so, but even friendship with Gabriel Westbrook comes with complications in Westbrook." "What exactly do people think happened that night?" Eliza asked, finally giving voice to the question that had been nagging at her. "With Abigail and David Chen?" Rachel glanced toward the door, making sure they were alone. "The official story is that Abigail was driving them back from a charity gala in Hartford. It was raining, the roads were slick, and she lost control on that sharp curve near the estate entrance. The car went off the road and hit a tree. Both died instantly." "But people don't believe that?" "Some do," Rachel shrugged. "Others think Gabriel was driving, not Abigail, that maybe he'd been drinking at the gala. A few of the real conspiracy theorists think it wasn't an accident at all, that Gabriel found out Abigail and David were having an affair and confronted them that night." "That's ridiculous," Eliza said immediately. "Gabriel adored his sister. Anyone who's heard him talk about her would know he could never hurt her." "You seem very sure about a man you've known for what, a month?" Rachel's tone was gentle but concerned. "Look, I'm not saying the rumors are true. Just be careful." Gabriel changed after the accident, became cold, reclusive. "The fact that he's opening up to you is surprising to everyone who knew him before." Eliza wanted to defend Gabriel further but held her tongue. She couldn't explain the connection she felt to him, the sense that beneath his reserved exterior was a man of depth and integrity who had been profoundly wounded. The night of their private dinner arrived, and Eliza found herself more nervous than she wanted to admit. She chose a simple burgundy dress that she hoped struck the right balance between casual and special, and spent more time than usual on her hair and makeup. "You look pretty, Mommy," Lily observed as Mrs. Winters arrived to babysit. "Are you and Mr. Gabriel going on a date?" "We're just having dinner," Eliza hedged, though she wasn't sure that was entirely true anymore. Gabriel arrived exactly at 7, dressed in dark slacks and a gray sweater that brought out the silver in his eyes. He handed her a bouquet of wildflowers, not the formal roses she might have expected, but a colorful assortment that looked freshly gathered. "I thought you might like these better than something from a florist," he explained. "They grow on the hill behind the upper lake." The thoughtfulness of the gesture touched her. "They're perfect." Instead of taking her to one of the upscale restaurants in Hartford as she'd half expected, Gabriel drove them to a small Italian place on the outskirts of Westbrook. The owner greeted him warmly. Clearly they knew each other, and led them to a private corner table lit by candles. "Antonio and I went to boarding school together," Gabriel explained after they were seated. "When he wanted to open his own restaurant, I was his first investor. It's not fancy, but the food is the best Italian you'll find outside of Naples." "I like that you brought me somewhere with personal meaning," Eliza said. "It says a lot about you." Gabriel's expression turned thoughtful. "What does it say?" "That beneath that billionaire exterior, you value authenticity and loyalty. That you remember where you came from, even if where you're from is probably a lot more privileged than most." He laughed softly. "Guilty as charged. Though I'd argue that privilege isn't just about money. You had parents who loved and supported you. That's a kind of wealth many people with trust funds never experience." The evening flowed easily from there. The food was indeed extraordinary, and the wine Gabriel selected perfectly complemented each course. By the time they finished their tiramisu, Eliza felt a warm glow that wasn't entirely due to the wine. On the drive back to the estate, Gabriel seemed to grow more serious. "There's something I want to show you," he said as they passed the turnoff for the lake house. "If you're not too tired?" "Not at all," Eliza replied, curious. He drove them to a part of the estate she hadn't seen before. A a small clearing on a hillside overlooking the valley. The town of Westbrook was visible in the distance, its lights twinkling in the darkness. Gabriel parked and came around to open her door, then led her to a stone bench positioned for the view. "This was Abigail's favorite spot," he said quietly as they sat. "She used to come here to think, to get away from expectations and obligations." Eliza sensed that whatever he had brought her here to say was important. She waited, giving him space to find the words. "The night of the accident," Gabriel began, his voice low, "Abigail and I had argued. She wanted to use a significant portion of our family foundation money to fund a community center in the poorer part of town. I thought it was impractical, that the money would be better used for scholarships or medical research." He paused, looking out at the view but seeing something else entirely. "She accused me of losing touch with what really mattered. Said I'd become cold, calculating, too focused on the bottom line. We both said things we regretted." Eliza reached for his hand in the darkness, offering silent support. "She left for the gala without me. David offered to drive her since his wife wasn't feeling well. When they didn't return by midnight, I started calling hospitals." His voice broke slightly. "The police found the car at 2 a.m. They were both already gone." "I'm so sorry, Gabriel," Eliza whispered. "The worst part is that she was right," he continued. "I had lost sight of what mattered. After the accident, I threw myself into fulfilling her vision, funding the community center, establishing scholarships in her name, building the lake house she'd designed for the family she hoped to have someday." He turned to face Eliza, his expression more open and vulnerable than she'd ever seen it. "When your car broke down that night, in almost the exact spot where Abigail's accident happened, during a similar storm, it felt like more than coincidence. Like maybe she was giving me a second chance to be the man she always believed I could be." The weight of his confession settled between them. Eliza understood now why he had helped them, why the lake house meant so much to him, and why the town's whispers about his possible role in the accident had wounded him so deeply. "Thank you for telling me," she said softly, "for trusting me with this." Gabriel's hand tightened around hers. "You're the first person I've wanted to tell. The first person since Abigail who makes me feel seen." The moment stretched between them, charged with unspoken possibilities. When Gabriel leaned forward, his intention clear, Eliza didn't pull away. His lips met hers in a kiss that was gentle yet insistent, asking a question she found herself answering without hesitation. When they finally broke apart, Gabriel rested his forehead against hers. "I didn't plan for this," he admitted. "For you. For feeling this way again." "Neither did I," Eliza replied honestly. "But sometimes the best things in life are the ones we don't plan for." As they drove back to the lake house, Eliza felt both lighter and more cautious. Gabriel Westbrook was becoming important to her, to both her and Lily, in ways she hadn't anticipated. But loving a man with Gabriel's past and position would never be simple, especially in a town that had already decided what kind of man he was. The question was whether what was growing between them was strong enough to withstand the storms that would inevitably come. News of Eliza and Gabriel's growing relationship spread through Westbrook with the speed and force of a winter nor'easter. What had begun as whispers in the teacher's lounge became open speculation at PTA meetings and knowing glances in the grocery store. For the most part, Eliza ignored it, focusing instead on her students and the surprising happiness she'd found with Gabriel. October melted into November, bringing with it the crisp beauty of a New England autumn. The estate grounds transformed into a canvas of red, gold, and amber. Gabriel took to showing Lily how to identify different trees by their leaves, creating a collection they pressed between the pages of heavy books in the main house library. "Mr. Gabriel knows everything about trees," Lily announced one evening as Eliza helped her organize her leaf collection. "He says they're like people, each one unique but still part of a bigger family." "That's a lovely way to think about it," Eliza smiled, watching her daughter carefully tape another maple leaf to a page. "You've really taken to him, haven't you?" Lily nodded without looking up. "He's not like Daddy. He listens when I talk, even about kid stuff, and he never breaks promises." The simple observation squeezed Eliza's heart. Mark had been full of grand promises. Trips to Disney World, A puppy for Christmas that never materialized. Gabriel, by contrast, was meticulous about keeping even the smallest commitments to Lily, whether it was checking her math homework as promised or remembering to bring the special hot chocolate she liked when they went hiking. Their relationship had settled into a comfortable pattern. Weekday dinners at the lake house where Gabriel would often join them, helping Lily with homework while Eliza prepared dinner. Weekend adventures exploring the estate or taking day trips to nearby attractions. And, increasingly, quiet evenings alone after Lily went to bed. Talking, sharing, learning each other's stories. Physical intimacy had developed slowly, respectfully. Gabriel seemed to understand Eliza's caution, her need to protect not just her heart but Lily's as well. They were building something deliberate and thoughtful, a foundation based on mutual respect and genuine affection. But clouds were gathering on their horizon, and the first thunderclap came on a Tuesday afternoon when Eliza was called to Principal Caldwell's office during her planning period. "Close the door, please," Victoria said when Eliza entered. The principal's usual warmth was replaced with professional concern. "We need to discuss a situation that's developed." Eliza sat in the chair across from Victoria's desk, a knot forming in her stomach. "What kind of situation?" "I've received calls from 3 parents expressing concern about your relationship with Gabriel Westbrook and how it might affect your objectivity as a teacher." "My personal life has nothing to do with my teaching," Eliza said, stunned. "I've never discussed Gabriel with my students." "I know that," Victoria assured her. "And I defended you completely. Your teaching has been exemplary. But you need to understand that the Westbrook name carries significant weight in this town, for better or worse." "What exactly are they concerned about?" Victoria sighed. "One parent specifically mentioned college recommendations, suggesting you might give preferential treatment to certain students based on their parents' relationships with Gabriel's businesses. Another was more vague, mentioning the moral example you set." "That's ridiculous!" Eliza felt her face flush with anger. "I've been nothing but professional." "I know," Victoria repeated, "but perception matters in a small town. The Westbrooks have always been divisive here, respected for their philanthropy but resented for their power. And since Abigail's death, that division has only deepened." "So what are you saying? That I should end my relationship with Gabriel to appease a few judgmental parents?" "Of course not." Victoria leaned forward. "I'm saying you should be prepared for scrutiny. People will be watching how you handle parent-teacher conferences next week, looking for any sign of favoritism or impropriety." Eliza felt a chill run through her. "You think they're actively trying to find reasons to have me removed?" "Not most parents," Victoria clarified. "The vast majority think you're wonderful, but there are a few influential families who were never comfortable with Gabriel's power in this town. Even before the accident, your relationship with him has made you a target by association." That evening, Eliza shared Victoria's warning with Gabriel as they sat on the lake house porch, watching the sunset reflect on the water. He listened silently, his expression darkening with each detail. "This is exactly what I was afraid would happen," he said finally. "My reputation in this town tainting yours. Perhaps we should be more discreet." "I don't want to hide," Eliza replied firmly. "We haven't done anything wrong. Besides, in a town this size, discretion is practically impossible." Gabriel reached for her hand, his thumb tracing circles on her palm. "There are powerful people in Westbrook who never forgave me for what happened to Abigail and David. Or rather, what they believe happened. I don't want you paying the price for their grudges." "Who specifically?" Eliza asked. "If I'm going to face opposition, I'd like to know where it's coming from." Gabriel was quiet for a moment. "David Chen's widow, Helen, for one. She blames me for the accident, believes I should have been driving that night instead of letting Abigail and David leave together. She's on the school board. Is she one of the parents who called Victoria?" "Probably not directly. Helen is too sophisticated for that. But she has allies. The Blackwells, the Harringtons. Old money families who've always resented the Westbrook influence in town affairs." Eliza leaned her head against his shoulder. "I won't let them intimidate me. My job performance speaks for itself. Gabriel pressed a kiss to the top of her head. "You are remarkably strong, Eliza Morgan, but I hate that you have to be because of me." The following week brought parent-teacher conferences, and with them the scrutiny Victoria had warned about. Most of the meetings went smoothly. Parents genuinely interested in their children's progress, grateful for Eliza's insights and teaching approach. But a few carried an undercurrent of tension, with pointed questions that seemed designed to trip her up. "I understand you live on the Westbrook estate now," Richard Harrington said casually as they discussed his son's reading progress. "That must be quite a change from teaching in Philadelphia." "I rent the lake house, yes," Eliza replied evenly. "Now about Tyler's comprehension scores." She redirected every personal probe back to the children, maintaining her professional composure even when the questions became thinly veiled accusations. By the final night of conferences, Eliza was exhausted but satisfied she'd handled herself appropriately. As she was packing up her materials, a woman she didn't recognize appeared in her classroom doorway, elegant, perhaps in her late 40s, with a composed expression that didn't quite reach her eyes. "Ms. Morgan, I'm Helen Chen. I believe we have a mutual acquaintance." Eliza's pulse quickened. This was David's widow, the woman Gabriel had mentioned. "Mrs. Chen, what can I do for you? I don't believe I have any students from your family." "No, my daughters are in high school now." Helen stepped into the classroom, her gaze taking in the colorful displays of student work. "I served on the hiring committee that approved your position. Your credentials were impressive." "Thank you," Eliza said cautiously, sensing this wasn't a social call. "I won't waste your time," Helen continued. "I came to warn you about Gabriel Westbrook. I know you're involved with him. The whole town knows." Eliza straightened her spine. "My personal life isn't relevant to my professional duties." "Isn't it?" Helen's smile was sad. "Everything connected to the Westbrooks becomes public property in this town. I learned that the hard way. Mrs. Chen, I'm sorry for your loss, but you don't know what happened that night." Helen interrupted, her composed facade cracking slightly. "Gabriel was supposed to drive them home. He and David had been drinking at the gala. Not excessively, but enough that Abigail offered to be the designated driver. At the last minute, Gabriel backed out, said he had work to finish. If he'd been in that car..." She trailed off, the implication clear. If Gabriel had been in the car, perhaps her husband would still be alive. Or perhaps Gabriel would have been the one who died instead. "I understand your pain," Eliza said gently. "But blaming Gabriel won't bring David back." "This isn't about blame," Helen insisted. "It's about who Gabriel became afterward. Cold. Withdrawn. He buried himself in work and cut ties with everyone who reminded him of Abigail or David, including me and my daughters, who had been like family to him." Eliza didn't know how to respond. This version of Gabriel, the man who had abandoned his friends in grief, seemed at odds with the person she'd come to know. "Perhaps he was dealing with his own guilt and grief," she suggested. "Perhaps." Helen moved toward the door, then paused. "Or perhaps he couldn't bear to face us, knowing what really happened that night. No one but Gabriel knows the truth about that argument he and Abigail had, or why he really didn't get in that car." After Helen left, Eliza sat at her desk for a long time, turning the conversation over in her mind. Was there truth in Helen's implications? Had Gabriel shared everything about that night, or was he still holding back pieces of the story? It was nearly 7 when she finally left the school building. The parking lot was dark, most of the other teachers long gone. As she approached her car, still the SUV Gabriel had lent her, she noticed a figure leaning against it. "Gabriel?" she called, squinting in the dim light. "What are you doing here?" He straightened, stepping into the glow of a nearby streetlight. "I thought you might want company on the drive home." The conferences ran late. The simple thoughtfulness of the gesture washed away some of Eliza's unease. This was the Gabriel she knew. Considerate, attentive to details, quietly supportive. "That would be nice," she said, unlocking the car. "It's been a long day." As they drove through town, Gabriel seemed to sense her preoccupation. "Did something happen at the conferences?" Eliza hesitated, then decided directness was best. "Helen Chen came to see me." Gabriel's posture stiffened. What did she want? "To warn me about you, apparently." Eliza kept her eyes on the road. "She seems to think you're hiding something about the night of the accident." The silence that followed felt heavier than any response could have been. Finally, Gabriel spoke, his voice low. Helen lost her husband that night. She needs someone to blame beyond simple bad luck or fate. I understand that. Are you hiding something? Eliza asked directly. Because if we're building something real here, Gabriel, I need the whole truth. They had reached the estate gates. Gabriel entered the code, and as they drove through, he finally answered. The argument Abigail and I had that night. It wasn't just about the community center funding. She told me she was in love with David, that they had been having an affair for months. She wanted my blessing to tell Helen, to end their marriage. Eliza felt her breath catch. What did you say? I told her she was being selfish, thinking only of her happiness at the expense of Helen's, their daughter's stability. We argued bitterly. She left for the gala alone, and David offered to drive her. He turned to look at Eliza, his eyes reflecting pain that seemed as fresh as if the argument had happened yesterday. My last words to my sister were angry ones. And hours later, she was gone. The car had stopped outside the main house, but neither made a move to get out. Why didn't you tell me this before? Eliza asked quietly. Because I was ashamed, Gabriel admitted. Not just of how I'd spoken to Abigail, but of what happened afterward. Helen was right about one thing. I did withdraw from everyone, including her family. It was too painful to look at those girls and know their father died in a car with a woman he'd been betraying their mother with. Does Helen know about the affair? Gabriel shook his head. As far as I know, no one does except me. And now you. I saw no point in destroying David's memory for her or their daughters. Let them remember him as a good husband and father, not as someone who broke his vows. The revelation settled between them, heavy with implications. Gabriel had carried this secret for 2 years, protecting Helen and her daughters from a truth that would only have caused more pain, even as town gossip painted him as cold and possibly complicit in the accident. Thank you for telling me, Eliza said finally. I know that wasn't easy. Gabriel reached across the console to take her hand. I want no secrets between us, Eliza, even the painful ones. That night, after checking that Lily was asleep, Eliza walked to the main house. Mrs. Winters let her in without comment, directing her to Gabriel's study where he sat before a dying fire, a glass of whiskey untouched beside him. When he looked up and saw her standing in the doorway, something in his expression broke open. Eliza crossed the room without hesitation, and when she took him in her arms, she felt the tension in his body slowly release. I kept thinking, he murmured against her hair, that if I'd just listened to her, been more understanding, if I'd driven them home myself, everything would be different. You can't know that, Eliza said softly. The accident might have happened anyway. Or something else entirely. Logically, I know that. Gabriel pulled back enough to look at her. But grief isn't logical. Neither is guilt. No, Eliza agreed. But they don't have to be life sentences either. That night marked a turning point in their relationship. The final walls between them had come down, revealing not perfection but honest vulnerability. When Gabriel led her upstairs to his bedroom, the decision felt natural, not rushed by passion but deepened by trust. In the quiet hours of the night, as they lay tangled together, Gabriel traced the curve of her cheek with gentle fingers. I never expected to find someone like you, he confessed. Someone who would see past the rumors and the money to who I really am. And who is that? Eliza asked, resting her palm over his heart. A man still learning how to live again, he answered. A man who's better when you're near. The days that followed brought a new sense of unity, of purpose. Gabriel began spending more nights at the lake house than at the main house, gradually becoming integrated into their daily routines. He was there for breakfast chaos and bedtime stories, homework struggles and weekend adventures. Lily, perceptive as always, seemed to understand the shift in their relationship. One evening, as Gabriel helped her build a complicated Lego structure, she asked casually, "Are you going to be my new dad?" The question hung in the air. Gabriel set down the Lego piece he was holding and gave the question the seriousness it deserved. "Would you want that, Lily?" if your mom and I decided to become a family together? Lily considered this, her small face solemn. I think so. You make Mom smile a lot. And you're really good at fixing things. Some things are easier to fix than others, Gabriel said gently. But I promise you this. I will always try my best to make both you and your mom happy. Eliza, listening from the kitchen doorway, felt her heart expand with love for both of them. Her brave, insightful daughter, and this man who had entered their lives so unexpectedly, yet now seemed indispensable. But not everyone in Westbrook shared their happiness. As November deepened, the atmosphere at school grew increasingly tense. Eliza noticed certain parents no longer volunteered for her classroom activities. At a faculty meeting, she caught several colleagues exchanging glances when she offered a suggestion. It's ridiculous, Rachel told her over coffee one afternoon. Everyone's acting like you've committed some terrible sin by dating a wealthy widower. He's not a widower, Eliza corrected. Abigail was his sister. You know what I mean, Rachel waved dismissively. The point is, people in this town have long memories and strong opinions about the Westbrooks. You're just collateral damage. I can handle a few disapproving looks, Eliza said, though the constant scrutiny was more wearing than she cared to admit. The situation came to a head the week before Thanksgiving. Victoria called Eliza into her office again, her expression grave. The school board met last night, she said without preamble. There was a motion to review your contract for next year. What? Eliza felt the floor shift beneath her. On what grounds? Officially, budget concerns. Unofficially. Victoria's mouth tightened. Helen Chen led the charge, with support from the Harringtons and Blackwells. This is about Gabriel, Eliza realized. They're punishing me for being with him. I fought it, Victoria assured her. Pointed out your excellent performance reviews, the improvements in your students' test scores. The motion was tabled for now, but I wanted you to be aware. Eliza left the office feeling numb. She had built a good life here, a job she loved, a beautiful home for Lily, a relationship with a man who respected and cherished her. Now it all felt precarious, threatened by grudges and suspicions that had nothing to do with her. When she told Gabriel that evening, his reaction surprised her. Instead of anger or defensiveness, a calm determination settled over his features. It's time this stopped, he said quietly. The whispers, the rumors, the division in this town. It's gone on long enough. What are you going to do? Gabriel stood, a decision clearly made. Something I should have done 2 years ago. Tell the truth, all of it, publicly. Clear the air once and for all. Even about Abigail and David? Eliza asked, concerned. What about Helen and her daughters? Gabriel's expression softened. Not that part. That remains private, to protect them. But the rest, the argument, why I wasn't in the car, what happened afterward, needs to come to light. He took her hands in his. I've been hiding from this town, from the memories, from myself. You helped me find the courage to live again, Eliza. Now I need to find the courage to face the past completely. Whatever you decide, she said, squeezing his hands, I'm with you. Gabriel smiled, a genuine smile that reached his eyes. I know. That's what gives me the strength to do this. As they stood together in the gathering dusk, Eliza felt a certainty settling over her. Whatever storms were coming, they would weather them together. The man who had fixed her car that rainy night had ended up fixing something far more important. The broken places in her heart she'd thought would never heal. And perhaps, in helping Gabriel face his past, she was completing her own healing as well. For the first time since Mark's betrayal, Eliza felt not just happy but secure. Not because life was perfect or easy, but because she had found someone worth fighting alongside. Someone who saw her strength and matched it with his own. The question was whether that combined strength would be enough to overcome the deeply entrenched prejudices and suspicions of a town that had already decided what kind of man Gabriel Westbrook was. The annual Westbrook Thanksgiving Festival had been a town tradition since Gabriel's grandfather's time, a community gathering on the town green with food, music, and a lighting ceremony that officially welcomed the holiday season. In years past, Gabriel had made only brief appearances, donating generously but keeping his distance from the festivities. This year would be different. Are you sure about this? Eliza asked as they drove toward the town center, Lily bouncing excitedly in the back seat. The festival was scheduled for the weekend before Thanksgiving, and Gabriel had informed her that morning of his plans to address the townspeople directly. "I've never been more certain of anything," Gabriel replied, his voice steady despite the tension evident in his shoulders. "Except perhaps how I feel about you and Lily." The town green was already bustling when they arrived. Booths selling crafts and food, children running between game stations, local musicians performing on a small stage. Heads turned as Gabriel parked his car, whispers spreading like ripples in a pond as he emerged with Eliza and Lily. "Mr. Gabriel!" Lily tugged at his hand. "Can we get apple cider donuts? I can smell them from here." "Of course, sweetheart," Gabriel smiled down at her. "Lead the way." As they moved through the crowd, Eliza noticed the varied reactions, some people nodding politely, others turning away deliberately. A few, mostly those who knew Eliza from school, offered genuine smiles and greetings. Victoria Caldwell approached them near the donut stand, her professional reserve softening at the sight of Lily's powdered, sugar-covered face. "It's good to see you here, Gabriel," she said. "It's been too long." "Too long indeed," Gabriel agreed. "Victoria, would it be possible for me to say a few words during the lighting ceremony? I know it's last minute, but it's important." The principal's eyebrows rose in surprise. "Of course. You are the festival's main benefactor, after all. I'll speak to Mayor Collins." As Victoria walked away, Eliza spotted Helen Chen across the green, standing with two teenage girls who bore a clear resemblance to her. Their eyes met briefly before Helen turned away, guiding her daughters in the opposite direction. "Are you going to tell me what you're planning to say?" Eliza asked quietly. Gabriel's gaze followed Helen and her daughters. "The truth, or as much of it as I can without causing more pain. The town deserves that much." They spent the next hour enjoying the festival, Gabriel making a point to speak with townspeople he'd previously avoided, old friends of his parents, business owners who depended on Westbrook tourism, teachers from the school. Most seemed surprised but pleased by his engagement, though a few, particularly Richard Harrington and his wife, made their disapproval clear with cold shoulders and hushed comments. As dusk approached, the crowd gathered around the town gazebo, where the mayor would officially start the lighting ceremony. Gabriel, Eliza, and Lily stood near the back, but Mayor Collins spotted them and waved Gabriel forward. "This might get uncomfortable," Gabriel warned Eliza. "We'll be right here," she assured him, squeezing his hand before he made his way through the crowd. Mayor Collins greeted Gabriel warmly on the gazebo steps. "Ladies and gentlemen," the mayor announced into the microphone, "before we begin our lighting ceremony, Gabriel Westbrook has asked to say a few words. As we all know, the Westbrook family has supported this festival for generations, and we're honored to have Gabriel with us tonight." A polite but reserved applause followed as Gabriel took the microphone. He stood tall, surveying the faces of the townspeople, some curious, some wary, a few openly hostile. "Thank you, Mayor Collins," Gabriel began. "It's good to be here among neighbors and friends again. Many of you have noticed my absence from town events these past 2 years. Today, I want to explain why, and to apologize for the distance I've maintained." A hush fell over the crowd. Eliza held Lily close, watching Gabriel's face as he finally confronted the whispers and suspicions that had shadowed him. 2 years ago, as most of you know, I lost my sister Abigail in a car accident that also claimed the life of my friend and colleague David Chen. What many of you don't know is that earlier that evening, Abigail and I had argued about business, about the Foundation's priorities, about the direction of our family legacy. It was a heated disagreement, the kind siblings sometimes have. Gabriel paused, his gaze finding Eliza in the crowd before continuing. "I was meant to attend the charity gala with her that night, but after our argument, I stayed home, buried myself in work. When David offered to drive her, I was relieved, too wrapped up in my own frustration to consider that I was putting my responsibilities on someone else's shoulders." He took a deep breath. "When I received the call about the accident, my world shattered, not just because I'd lost my sister, my only real family, but because my last words to her had been spoken in anger. I withdrew from everyone and everything that reminded me of her. I let guilt consume me." The crowd was completely silent now, all eyes fixed on Gabriel as he continued. "I've heard the whispers, the theories about what really happened that night. Some have suggested I was somehow responsible for the accident, or that I abandoned my responsibilities to this town out of callousness rather than grief. His voice grew stronger. The truth is simpler, and perhaps more human. I was broken by loss and guilt. I couldn't face the people who had known and loved Abigail and David, couldn't bear to see their pain reflecting my own. So I retreated behind the walls of the estate, trying to honor Abigail's memory by fulfilling her wishes for the foundation while keeping everyone at arm's length. Gabriel's gaze found Helen Chen in the crowd. To those I hurt through my absence, particularly the families who needed support during their own grief, I am deeply sorry. I failed you, and I failed Abigail's memory by allowing pain to overshadow the values she lived by. Community, compassion, connection. He looked back at Eliza, a small smile touching his lips. Recently, fate brought someone into my life who helped me remember those values, someone who showed me that hiding from pain only prolongs it, while sharing it, and sharing joy, can lead to healing. Lily waved enthusiastically at the mention, causing a ripple of gentle laughter through the crowd. Gabriel's smile widened before his expression grew serious again. I can't change the past. I can't bring back those we've lost. But I can honor them by living fully in the present and looking toward the future. The Westbrook Foundation will be establishing a permanent memorial for Abigail and David at the community center she fought for, which, I'm pleased to announce, will break ground this spring. He paused, looking out at the faces watching him. Some now softened, others still wary. This town meant everything to Abigail. She believed in Westbrook's potential to be not just a pretty postcard of New England charm, but a true community where everyone belongs and contributes. I lost sight of that vision for a time, but I'm committed to helping realize it now. Gabriel gestured toward the massive Christmas tree waiting to be lit. This festival has always been about coming together, celebrating our connection as neighbors despite our differences. In that spirit, I hope we can begin to heal old wounds and move forward, not forgetting those we've lost, but honoring them by how we live. He handed the microphone back to Mayor Collins, who appeared momentarily speechless before recovering. Thank you, Gabriel, for those heartfelt words. Now, shall we proceed with the lighting? As Gabriel made his way back through the crowd, Eliza could see the mixed reactions, some people reaching out to shake his hand or pat his shoulder, others maintaining their distance, processing what they'd heard. Helen Chen stood motionless, her daughters on either side, her expression unreadable. When Gabriel reached Eliza and Lily, he exhaled slowly, as if releasing a burden he'd carried for years. Well, that's done. You were amazing, Eliza said softly, taking his hand. That took incredible courage. Lily nodded in agreement. Super brave. Like when Spider-Man has to tell Aunt May the truth even though it's hard. Gabriel laughed, genuinely amused by the comparison. Thank you, Lily. That means a lot coming from a Spider-Man expert. The mayor announced the countdown to the lighting ceremony, and as the crowd joined in, Gabriel put his arm around Eliza's shoulders, drawing her and Lily close. When the lights blazed to life, thousands of twinkling bulbs illuminating the town green, Eliza felt a similar warmth spreading through her chest. Whatever happened next, Gabriel had taken the first brave step toward reconciliation with his past and with the town. As the crowd dispersed to enjoy the newly lit displays, Helen Chen approached them, her daughters hanging back a few paces. Gabriel tensed beside Eliza, but stood his ground. That was unexpected, Helen said, her voice carefully neutral. After 2 years of silence. It was overdue, Gabriel replied. Helen, She held up a hand. I'm not ready for personal apologies yet. But what you said about the memorial, about honoring them both, David would have appreciated that. She glanced at Eliza and Lily. Your family seems lovely. I hope they bring you the peace you're looking for. Before Gabriel could respond, Helen turned and walked away, her daughters following closely. It wasn't forgiveness, not yet, but it was an acknowledgement, the first tentative step toward healing a rift that had seemed unbridgeable. The days following the festival brought a subtle but noticeable shift in the town's attitude. At school, Eliza found fewer whispers following her through the hallways. Several parents who had been coolly polite before now stopped to chat after dropping off their children. Even Richard Harrington nodded to her in the grocery store, a small but significant change. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.